Hey everybody, Dr. Chris here. Thanks for joining me. I'm shaking a bottle of MCT oil at you right now. That's what we're going to talk about. I got it in my hand. Let's talk about it. So MCT oil is kind of hip and trendy nowadays, right? So with a ketogenic diet all over the place, a lot of people are using MCT oil. And for one main reason is that it's a bunch of fat, right? So if you're trying to avoid carbohydrates, you got to get your calories from somewhere. You're getting it from protein and you're getting it from fat, okay? And MCT oil, source of fat, all right? Pretty concentrated fat. So first of all, what does MCT stand for? All right, so I do know, if I'm looking at the bottle here, medium chain triglycerides. Okay, so triglycerides, kind of fat, and there's different lengths of triglycerides, right? So these are medium chain, all right? There's short chain, there's long chain, and there's some suggestion, not some suggestion, it's true that these all act a little bit differently. It's like saying carbohydrates, such a broad topic or a broad phrase. There's all sorts of subsets, right? There's simple carbohydrates, there's sugar, there's fiber, there's a lot of different kinds of carbohydrates, just like there's a lot of different kinds of fat, and they act differently. And so people are thinking, well, the medium chain triglycerides act differently. They may not have the same kind of negative cardiovascular effects that we used to think. All right, when you lump them together with all the other saturated fats. So medium chain triglycerides are a subset of saturated fat. Now, you look at the cardiovascular literature, you look at the American Heart Association presidential paper, tons of evidence going on and on and on about how saturated fat leads to negative cardiovascular outcomes, increased risk of heart attacks and strokes and high cholesterol and all of those things, okay? Now, you tease out the medium chain triglycerides, is it still an issue? I don't know, TBD. So most medium chain triglycerides come from two sources or a combination of both. That's coconut oil or coconuts and palm oil. All right. So you get those two, one or the other, put them together, MCT. Okay. You get a jug of just coconut oil. That's medium chain triglycerides, okay? So people put this in their coffee, they eat it by the spoonful, they pour it in this or that, they might drink it straight just to get those extra calories. Again, specifically if you're on a ketogenic diet in general is where people are using it nowadays most often and why it's hip and trendy and in health stores, okay? So my take on it, little bit, I'll say I'm a little conservative on the issue, okay? And one of the main issues is I'm not entirely convinced that unrestricted saturated fat intake is good for you, okay? Now, if you're doing a ketogenic diet, again, that's what most people are using this for, studies show that most people's cholesterol don't change a whole lot at all, okay? So the LDL, your bad cholesterol, most people on a ketogenic diet, your LDL stays pretty similar. Now, there are some people whose LDL, their bad cholesterol, goes up. There are some people whose numbers go through the roof, okay, super high. And that's thought to be due to saturated fat. Now, some people will say, well, their saturated fat or their LDL, their bad cholesterol goes through the roof because of saturated fat, but they're utilizing it differently because they're in ketosis, so it might be fine. Yeah, it might be, it might not be, okay? We just don't know, all right? All the evidence we have so far says saturated fat is associated with heart disease. I'm not quite ready to take that risk yet. I wouldn't recommend it for others either. So I still say be careful with saturated fat. You know, if you keep it to 10% or less of your total calories, you got to do a little bit of math with that. If you have a calculator, great. I can help you out with it, whatever. But 10% or less of your saturated fat, if you're an otherwise healthy person, 10% of your total calories from saturated fat or less, if you're an otherwise healthy person. All right, so that's MCT oil. Other saturated fats, I kind of lump together at this point. And again, I understand MCTs are different than other kinds of saturated fats, but still, we just don't have enough evidence at this time right now. Other than what I said, ketogenic diet, most people's cholesterol don't change a whole lot, but some really do. So it's reasonable to keep an eye on it and don't blindly start chugging bottles of MCT oil, okay? So that's my take on saturated fat in about 4 minutes. A little more specific on medium chain triglyceride oil. Again, that comes from coconut oil and palm oil and is used to increase your fat intake, mostly for those who are following a ketogenic diet. Most people's cholesterol don't change a whole lot on a ketogenic diet, but there are some who really do respond poorly, meaning their bad cholesterol goes quite high. So keep an eye on it. That's my take. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Dr. Chris. Be sure to schedule your free 30-minute initial phone consultation by sending me an email or by visiting our website at refinedwellnessconsulting.com.